All right, Shalawam. First and foremost, I want to give all praises to the Heavenly Father, Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Racha, Kodash. Next, double honors unto the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone, who taught me this truth and rule well. Peace, love, and salutations to the hopeful elect, scattered across the four corners of the earth. I'm your brother Khalak, out of the Great Millstone Atlanta camp, coming to you again with another Lord willing, edifying video. And in this lesson, we are going to be going into the beast. All right, Lord willing, we can identify the beast and link it with the world we see today. So starting off, we're going to start off in Daniel, because in Daniel chapter 2 and also verse 7, it pretty much gives you an outline of four major kingdoms that would rule on the earth, or heathen nations that would rule on the earth, and that the Israelites will go into captivity under. All right. And so in Daniel chapter 2 and 36, verse 36 to around verse 43, you can read about these kingdoms. All right. You got the head of gold, which is Babylon. Then you have the chest and arms of silver, which is Medo-Persia. All right. You got the thighs of brass, which is Greece. And then you have the legs of iron, which is Rome. And then the feet of iron and clay, which is the revived Roman Empire. Okay. And these also link with the four beasts that you can read about in Daniel 7. But the beast in Revelation that we read about, okay, that's speaking of the Roman Empire. All right. So that's what we're going to go deeper into here in Daniel. So Daniel chapter 2 and 40, it says, "And the fourth kingdom shall be strong as iron. For as much as iron breaketh in pieces and subdueth all things, and as iron that breaketh all these, shall it break in pieces and bruise." All right. So this fourth kingdom, but speaking of the Roman Empire, and is likened unto iron because of that very strong military that the Roman Empire had. Verse 41, "And whereas thou sawest the feet and toes, part of potter's clay, and part of iron, the kingdom shall be divided, but there shall be in it of the strength of the iron, for as much as thou sawest the iron mixed with miry clay." All right, now this is speaking of the revived Roman Empire. All right, and it's likened unto iron and clay because this time it's divided. All right, the Roman Empire today is NATO and the EU. And at the forefront of that is America, which is Babylon the Great. Now, this lets us know that we are at the end, because the revived Roman Empire is the last kingdom before the divine kingdom. All right, this is when the Lord Yahweh Shai returns to set up his government on the earth. All right, that all the other nations will submit to. So the revived Roman Empire, which we are in right now, is the beast that we read about in Revelation, as we're going to get further into. And this is the last kingdom that the Lord is coming back to take down. All right. That's the last heathen rulership. And then from this point on, it will be the Israelites ruling on the earth for eternity. And the Israelites today are the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, as well as you Israelite foreigners that may look like the other heathen nations, but according to the seed of your forefathers, you trace back to Jacob. All right. And so Daniel 7 and 7, you can also read about the Roman Empire. All right. It's that fourth beast. Now to get to Revelation. All right. Revelation 13 and 1. This is speaking of the fourth beast that we were just going over. "And I stood upon the sand of the sea, and saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his heads the name of blasphemy." All right. Now the sea is talking about peoples. All right. This is Revelation 17 and 15. "And he saith unto me, The waters which thou sawest, where the horse sitteth, are peoples and multitudes and nations and tongues." Okay, so contrary to the mainstream Christianity today, or contrary to the mainstream doctrine of today, that these are actual beasts or dragons, all that mythical BS. The dragon is talking about a people. And as we're going to get into, is speaking of Esau, Edom, the so-called white man. All right. That is ultimately who the beast is. All right. Now back to Revelation 13:2. And the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard. Now that's speaking of the Greeks. All right. That's how the Edomites first came into power, was through the Greeks. And his feet were as the feet of a bear. That's speaking of the Russians. All right. The feet symbolize the end of a thing. And it will be, when you understand end time prophecy, it will be through the Russians that the Edomites go down. Okay. Which Russians are Edomites also. They're divided against themselves. And the war is basically going to take them all out of power. Reading on. And his mouth as the mouth of a lion. And the dragon gave him his power. Now the dragon is the Roman Empire, because that is what really solidified the Edomites' world dominance. That's how they really were able to get a grip on the world, back in the Western Roman Empire and now. And his seat and his great authority. Right. Now, as far as the 7 heads, okay, this is a good image here of the beast. And essentially the 7 heads are the 7 major kingdoms or governments ruled by Esau. All right. You got the Greeks, the French, Spanish, the Romans, the British, Germania Major and Germania Minor. All right. Those are those 7 heads of the beast. And then the 10 horns symbolize the subordinate vassal states to Rome. Okay. Today, the 10 horns would be the EU, all right, the European Union. And you can see the philosophy: democracy, religion, idolatry, homosexuality, lies, adultery, covetousness, murder. All right. And when we get further into the scriptures, we're going to see that that's what this beast or Esau brought to the world. So again, this beast here in Revelation 13 that we see coming out of the sea is the Roman Empire. Okay. Now, Revelation 13:3, and I saw one of his heads as it were wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed, and all the world wondered after the beast. Right, because the Roman Empire fell. All right, the Roman Empire fell. The Western Roman Empire fell around the 1400s, or excuse me, around 400 AD, roughly. Revelation 20:1. And I saw an angel come down from heaven, having the key of the bottomless pit, and a great chain in his hand. And he laid hold on the dragon, that old serpent, which is the devil and Satan, and bound him 1,000 years. All right, so the dragon, and this shows that Esau actually goes back to the serpent in the garden. Okay, but that's for another video, another day. Nevertheless, this is speaking of the Roman Empire, which is also synonymous with Esau. All right. And he laid hold on the dragon, that old serpent, which is the devil and Satan, and bound him 1,000 years, and cast him into the bottomless pit, and shut him up, and set a seal on him, that he should deceive the nations no more, till the 1,000 years should be fulfilled, and after that he must be loosed a little season. All right. So this is when after the Roman Empire fell, the Edomites pretty much fell to a low estate. A lot of them fled into the Caucasus Mountains for 1,000 years. All right. And these 1,000 years were known as the Dark Ages. All right. This is when Israelites ruled, so-called Negroes. All right. The Jews. The Dark Ages, just a simple Google search here. It says the Dark Ages is a term for the early Middle Ages, roughly 5th to 10th centuries. All right. So that's year about 500 AD to 1,000. Okay. But we know it was longer than that. The Dark Ages was roughly it was 1,000 years. We know that according to prophecy. Okay. So about 400 to 1400 AD. The Byzantine Empire was one of the main empires in the Dark Ages, all right? Simple Google search. It says the Byzantine Empire, also known as the Eastern Roman Empire, was the continuation of the Roman Empire in its eastern provinces after the fall of the Western Roman Empire in 476. All right? So the Israelites, which are the so-called Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans, but at this time, it was the Jews in the Roman Empire. They had taken over the Roman Empire, so-called Negroes, and ruled in Europe for 1,000 years. But then, here's some more prophecy. Revelation 20:7. And when the 1,000 years are expired, Satan shall be loosed out of his prison, and shall go to deceive the nations which are in the four quarters of the earth, Gog and Magog, to gather them together to battle, the number of whom is as the sand of the sea. So, we live in a movie. The Lord has certain nations rise and fall whenever he wants to. All right, so Esau, or the Roman Empire, had fell for that period of time, 1,000 years. And then here came the Renaissance after 1,000 years. Simple Google search. The Renaissance was a period in European history, roughly from the 14th to the 17th century, marked by a rebirth of interest in classical Greek and Roman culture. Okay, prophecy is going to nail it down every time. Revelation 20, when you see the dragon that was locked up for 1,000 years and then released after 1,000 years, it's talking about the Roman Empire, all right, which is synonymous with Esau, because he runs the Roman Empire. Now, also here in Revelation 20:8, where it says Gog and Magog to gather them together to battle, that's speaking of Russia, all right? Russia is going to be at the forefront of World War III, all right, to bring down this beast system, all right? Now, to get some more on that, you search up the Treaty of Rome, all right? It says, the quote, "We felt like Romans on that day. We were consciously recreating the Roman Empire once more," is attributed to Paul Henry Spaak, a Belgian politician and founding father of the modern effort to unite Europe. So this is speaking of the Treaty of Rome, all right? Also which basically led to the formation of the EU. And when they created it, they said they felt like Romans on that day, because that's exactly what happened. The Roman Empire was revived according to Bible prophecy. All right, you can go into ChatGPT and you can search up parallels between America and the Roman Empire, and there's plenty. All right, military dominance, economic inequality, political polarization, bread in circuses, we know about that. Expansion and overreach, immigration and identity, decay and civic virtue, reliance on cheap labor and slavery. All right, this is the Roman Empire. We are living in the revived Roman Empire right now. So we're going to end it here. Lord willing, this video was edifying and straight to the point, just identifying the beast. So we're going to end it by giving all praises to the Heavenly Father, Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakha Kodash. Once again, double honors unto the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone. Peace, love, and salutations to the hopeful elect. Shalawam.